Hello, I'm Matt O'Donnell, and this is my persuasive speech on how foster care impacts kids' lives positively. Each year, there's about 400,000 foster kids that need homes to live in, and they're in rough backgrounds as well. I can also speak from first-hand experience, knowing that we had a boy that was 17 years old, about the same age as me, come into our house my senior year to live with us. His name was John Tay. He was originally from Omaha, and he came to live with us the summer before my senior year, and we learned about him through my dad's secretary. He was at a Northwestern basketball game, and we learned about him, and we kind of decided to see where things would go. My parents decided to start taking foster care classes just in case things were going to go well. He went to high school in Clarinda, and he played many sports there as well. My three mini theses are: foster care kids come from rough backgrounds, foster care placement is important, and foster care kids need to be raised correctly as well. My first one is the importance of foster care, the importance to get foster care kids out of their rough backgrounds. The first thing you want to do when you're taking in a foster care child is to create a positive environment for the kids. They're coming from rough backgrounds, so their parents are drug addicts, their parents are not there for them, they're in trouble, and creating a positive environment and getting them out of that negative one is something that I think that is very important. Some of the reasons why kids go into foster care are physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, medical neglect, incarceration, abandonment, juvenile offender, and death. As for Jonte's parents were both not really around for him that much. His dad was in and out of jail. Jonte was in some trouble himself with the law, and that's what ended up taking him to Clarinda Academy, which is where we found out about him as well. Like I said, his dad was a drug leader and was in prison, and his mom did a lot of drugs as well. It's really important to get these kids out of these negative environments and into positive ones so they can eventually live successful lives. The next one is foster care placement is important. Foster care is a very selective process. Like I said, my parents took 10 weeks of classes, and each week they learned about different things that you want to do when you have a foster care kid come into the home. You have to lock your cabinets. The kid has to have their own room. There's a whole bunch to say. I got interviewed by the lady that came to our house, as did my brothers, and they had to make sure that the home was safe and that it was going to be a good environment. The house has to be very suitable to the child as well, and there was many in-home visits that came, and like I said, the 10-week classes. Child has to have their own room. Parents must be older than 21 but younger than 65 years old, and there's a bunch of safety standards that go in that I could go into detail, but I won't. I'll spare you the time. Before he came to live with us, we went down to Clarinda, and we had to meet him, and he had to approve everything, and my brothers and I played basketball with him, and right from then, we knew everything was going to be good. We got along with him right away. He ended up telling me his life story in the back seat that same day about all the troubles that he went through and how he wanted to turn his life around and how he was doing better at the academy. He told me about his parents, that he was living with his grandmother, and told me all about his family and all of his troubles and how he wanted to turn his life around, and I thought that was very cool for the first time. But right away we knew it was going to be a great fit, and ultimately it ended up being a great fit for us. One story about it, one of the first times I went to pick him up, my parents were gone and I had to go pick him up in Sioux City, and there was a tornado that day, but I had no idea, and I was on my way to Sioux City, and right outside of, I want to say, Hinton, there was just these huge funnel clouds coming at me, and I ended up having to pull over. There was about 70-mile-an-hour winds, it was raining, it was hailing. Called my parents, I was freaking out, didn't know what to do, and eventually I made it to Sioux City, and right as I got there, about 2 to 5 miles away, I'd say, there was hanging clouds, and right when he got there, his mom was calling me, or his grandma was calling me, telling me about how there was bad weather for them as well, and about 2 to 5 miles away was just this tornado, and didn't really know what to do. We had to stay inside, and that was pretty cool bonding time with him. He told me more about how his life was going, but over the summer he had to keep coming up for different basketball camps because he was going to play basketball with us. He played football. He never played football in his life, and I have a story about that later too, about one of his funny stories. But foster care placement is very important. And without properly placing the kids in the right home, it could be a very difficult situation for the child, and that's why it was good that he agreed to live with us, because otherwise it might not have gone as well. My third thesis is that foster care kids need to be raised correctly. There's some really bothering statistics about how kids, or I got this from the Child Welfare League of America, some of them tend to not graduate college, maintaining employment, they get in trouble with the law, and early parenthood was also another big one. A lot of these can be avoided if the child is raised correctly. My parents did a great job of treating him as one of their own kids. He had the same curfew as I did when I was his age. He had the same rules. He had to have a job. There was a whole bunch of other things. He had to help around the house with a whole bunch of different things as well. I mean, obviously there's going to be some negative things to foster care, and he really didn't know what he wanted to do when he got out of high school. He played football at Augie for a year, transferred to Northwestern, played football there, and now he's trying to join the police academy or play more football in California. He's just kind of going all over the place. We've done a good job with helping him financially a little bit, but other than that, I mean, you want your kids to be successful for the real world is the ultimate goal, and I think my parents did a good job of preparing him to have a job when he got out of college and all of that as well. My football story would be, my football coach used to always have me help him out at football, try to communicate, because I got along very well with him, and coach told him to get 3 yards on a play, and he was playing running back for us. He was pretty tall for a running back, but he literally got the 3 yards and just squatted down, and the coach was like, "What are you doing, Jonte?" And he ended up, it's like, "Coach told me to get 3 yards," and it was pretty funny because obviously you run past the 3 yards, but obviously raising them correctly and helping them for the future is a big thing, and I think that's very important. He had a very positive effect on my family and myself. I mean, I love the kid to death, and I would do anything for him. And he also had a very big impact on our community. Little kids were looking up to him, always drawing pictures of him. He was the only black kid at Sioux Center, so it was pretty cool. Kids at church looked up to him. Everyone just absolutely loved the kid. He's raised well by my parents, becoming successful for the real world, and helping him get on the right track obviously was a big thing as well. So the three things that are good for foster care, or 3 things you need to know. Foster care kids come from rough backgrounds, foster care placement is important, and foster care kids need to be raised correctly. And obviously it's a very rewarding experience, and I would encourage anyone to enter foster care.